Okay, today we're going to work through accentuating the negative investigation for section 1. This is on page 37 in your green folder. Okay, so 37 is what you want to find in your green folder. Okay, so yesterday you did an activity with Gizmos that reviewed the order of operations. Today, what I'm going to do is make sure that you've got a good foundation on how to work with the order of operations. And I also want to show you how I'd like to see your calculations for these order of operation problems. Okay. So to begin, let's go ahead and take a look at this problem. Since it didn't copy real clearly, I'm going to go ahead and just look at the second copy and read from here. All right, so the following example shows why order of operations are important. So the soccer team orders 20 new jerseys from Custom Jersey Designs. The total cost is represented by the equation cost equals 100 plus 15n, where C is the cost in dollars and N is the number of jersey ordered. Pedro and David calculated the total cost. So Pedro's calculation looks like this. He does C equals 100 plus 15 times 20. Okay, works this out and gets $400. David does this calculation. So C equals 100 plus 15 times 20 gets 115 times 20 and gets $2,300. So who did the calculation correctly? Like, this is going to be pretty important. Like, that's a way different amount of money, $400 versus $2,300. All right, so let's see where this equation is even coming from anyways. Okay, so if you look at the picture over here, it's saying that you can get this custom jersey if you pay $100 in a setup fee and then $15 per shirt. Okay. And they wanted to get 20 of these in total. So they knew they'd have to pay the $100 plus $15 per shirt. So that's where the 100 plus 15n, where n was the number of shirts, came from to get the cost. All right, so let's look again. Who did the calculation correctly? Was it Pedro or David? Okay, so did you think that it was Pedro's? I mean, David's was going to be really expensive. All right, so if you remember what you learned about the order of operations, that first we take care of any kind of parentheses, okay, which there are none of those. Then we take care of any kind of exponents. Not seeing any of those. Then we multiply or divide, whichever one comes first. Okay, then we add or subtract whichever one comes first. Okay, so it does look like we are going to do this multiplication first before this addition. Okay, so and who did the multiplication first before the addition? All right, looks like Pedro did. So he did his multiplication first and got 300, added the 100, got $400, while David, on the other hand, did his addition first, then his multiplication. Okay, basically what David did by doing this calculation error and adding first before multiplying is he charged every kid $115. Well, the $100 is just going to be charged once, but the $20, $15 is going to be charged 20 times. Okay, so you should have said that it was Pedro did the correct calculation. Okay, so and then just as a so we know that should have been Pedro. Okay. Not David. David would have way overcharged you. And then let's just again make sure we know what the order of operations are. So if there's any kind of parentheses, we do those first. So we should say P. And then exponents come next. Okay. So any kind of exponents. And then multiplication or division, whichever one comes first as we work left to right. Then addition or subtraction, whichever one comes first. Okay. So, in thinking about why we need these, I mean, parentheses are kind of the rule breakers. Like, if we really wanted to do an addition before multiplication, we'd need to use some parentheses. Okay. All right. And so, there's no like super exciting way as to why it was set up. It's just an agreed upon um, convention that mathematicians have decided on to make sure that we all get the same thing when we do some kind of calculation. Okay. All right. So here are some problems that I want you to do. All right, let's first focus on this one, okay? And again, remember how I said at the beginning of the video, I was going to be a little picky about how you show your work just so that we can see each of your steps. All right, so I'm thinking again, like, okay, I'm first parentheses, then exponents, multiply or divide, then add or subtract. So I'm looking at this problem here, okay? And the first thing I want to do is, looks like parentheses, okay? Now, parentheses might be brackets, and this parenthesis right here is really just making that negative 10 kind of clear. So the first thing I'm going to do is 2 plus negative 10. All right, so and here's where I thought I was going to be a bit picky on this. I want you to rewrite the whole problem with the answer to 2 times negative 10 embedded inside. So I want you to write negative 3 times 2 plus negative 10. Okay, what's that? Okay, hopefully you remember your sign rules. That should be negative 8 minus 2 squared. Okay, so I'm rewriting the rest of the work, just replacing this with what I came up with. Okay, so and if you follow these steps, pretty much everyone's work is going to look the same. All right, so now I'm looking, I don't have any parentheses. Okay, I've got a multiplication, I have a subtraction, and I have an exponent. Which one should I do next? Okay, so I should take care of the exponent. All right, so I'm going to write negative 3 times negative 8 minus, and then 2 squared. That means 2 times 2, so 2 multiplied by itself, so that gives me 4. All right, so now it looks like I've got a multiplication and a subtraction. Which one should I do next? All right, I'm going to multiply. Negative 3 times negative 8 should be positive 24. Minus 4. So it looks like I only have one operation left to do. 24 minus 4 is 20. There we go. Okay, so same thing on this one. I'm going to go nice and slow with you on this one. Okay, so parentheses come first. Okay, it looks like I've got a bunch of parentheses because remember the bracket is just a fancy, another type of parentheses. So sometimes brackets are used when there's more than one set of parentheses just to make it clear. Okay, so I'm going to work the parentheses inside those parentheses and do this first. Okay, so I'm going to write 10 minus 50 divided by, and then I'm going to do negative 2 times 25, which would be negative 50. Okay, minus 7 times 2 squared. Okay, so now I'm going to keep working inside those parentheses. I've got a division and a subtraction. Division is going to come first. 10 minus negative 1 minus 7. So 50 divided by negative 50 is negative 1 times 2 squared. Okay, still my bracket, so I'm going to do that next. Got negative 1 minus 7. So 10 minus negative 1, take away 7. Got 1 negative, I'm taking away 7 positives. I've got a bunch of 0 pairs, take them off. I've got negative 8, okay, times 2 squared. Okay, what am I going to do next? Okay, I've got a subtraction, a multiplication, I have an exponent. I'm going to do the exponent. 10 minus negative 8. 2 squared is 2 times 2. That's 4. Okay, negative 8 times 4 is, okay, so I've got a subtraction or a multiplication. I'm going to do the multiplication next. 10 minus negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is do 10 subtract negative 32. I've got 10 positives. I'm taking away 32 negatives. I need a lot of 0 pairs. When I take all those negatives off, I'm going to get even more positives. It should be positive 42. Okay. All right, let's look at these on the back. Okay. All right, I want you to go ahead and try and work through number 1. Okay, doing one step at a time. What did you get? Okay, now I'm going to work it through. I've got a multiplication, an addition, a division. I'm going to do the division, multiplication first. Okay, remember it's whatever comes first, left to right. So I've got negative 28 plus 8 divided by 2. I'm going to do the division next. Negative 28. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, now the only operation I have next is the addition. Negative 28 plus 4 is negative 24. Okay, now I want you to go ahead and try number 2. One step at a time. Okay, how'd you do? I'm going to do my addition first. Okay, then I'm going to do my exponent next. Okay, then I'm going to do my multiplication next. 50 minus 1. Last thing is my subtraction. Okay. I'm going to leave number 3 as kind of a challenge problem. Okay. So you can try that one maybe at the end of the video. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Okay, so underline what you're doing one step at a time. Go nice and slow. All right, did you do your subtraction first? 4 minus 5 is negative 1 cubed. Okay, let's do our exponent next. Negative 3 cubed. That means, or sorry, negative 1 cubed. That means negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1 times another negative 1 is going to be negative 1. So 8 times negative 1 plus 3. Okay, I've got a multiplication and addition. I'm going to do the multiplication next. Negative 8 plus 5. That should give me negative, or plus 3. That should give me negative 5. Okay, let's look at 5. Okay. All right, so I've got brackets and parentheses. I'm going to do the inside parentheses inside that bracket. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is that step. So negative 8 times 4 minus negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Okay, I'm going to finish out what's in here. Remember, the brackets are just fancy parentheses. So I've got negative 8 times 4 minus negative 2. That should be positive 6. Negative 8 times 6 is negative 48. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at number 6. All right, so I've got a division, a multiplication, an exponent, and an addition. What should I do first? I'm going to go with my exponent. So I've got negative 16 divided by 8. Okay, 2 times 2 times 2. 2 cubed is 8 plus negative 7. Okay, so I've got a division, a multiplication, and addition. What should I do next? Okay, don't be tempted to do that one. Should have been the division. Negative 16 divided by 8 is negative 2. Okay, I've got a multiplication and addition. I'm going to do the multiplication next. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16 plus negative 7. And then last is my addition. I'm adding a bunch of negatives. Should be negative 23. Okay. All right. Ooh, it was a big one with lots of steps. Take your time. Do one step at a time. Okay, did you do your exponent first? Negative 7 squared is 49. Okay, so I'm looking across. It looks like I've got no more exponents, no parentheses, but multiply or divide, whichever one comes first. 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, so multiply or divide, whichever one comes first. Multiply or divide, whichever one comes first. Okay, multiply or divide, whatever one comes first. Okay, now multiplication division is gone. Goodness. All right, so I'm going to add or subtract, whichever one comes first. Looks like I've got adding. Okay. Add or subtract, whichever one comes first. So I need to do 33 minus 49. It's going to give me negative 16. Okay, plus 2. Should have ended up with negative 14. Okay, so why don't you go back and try number 3 if you'd like a challenge. Okay, if you think you've got the answer to 3, hang on to it, and then we'll talk about it when we get back together. Okay, so hopefully you're understanding how to use the order of operations and you're seeing how to like slowly show each step.